Good morning. My name is Edwell John Jr. I'm from Angoon, Dakl'aweidi. I was asked to come here and present to you how I was installed as the killer whale chasing the seal clan house. I don't profess to know everything there is to know about being a clan leader. And I know I'll make mistakes. I'm grateful that I have people like this here and people out there to help me if I do make a mistake and to correct me. With this presentation, I don't mean to offend anyone or make anyone upset. I really like the name of this conference, Sharing Our Knowledge. That's what I'm going to do this morning. I'm going to share my knowledge from what I know and for what has happened to me, being the killer whale chasing the seal housemaster. Before I get into my presentation, I'd like to thank the sponsors again for putting this on. Some of the main sponsors are the National Science Foundation. I'd like to thank them for helping out with this. Another sponsor is the Southeast Alaska Native Educators Association and Sitka Tribe of Alaska. Also like to thank the coordinators, that put all this on. It's awesome that people are traveling from Russia and from all parts of the United States just to come and to share their knowledge and to hear our knowledge. Really appreciate all of that's happening this weekend, this conference. I'm looking forward to the whole weekend. Also, I'd like to thank the host clans, the clans at Harriman, and the Katzeek and nakani. I'd like to thank them for hosting, for allowing us to come here on your land. And also, I'd like to thank all the guests that traveled, especially the ones that traveled from a long ways and used their money to come here to gather knowledge and take back to, for example, Canada. That's awesome. That's really good. And from Russia, to take some knowledge back to Russia and to all the villages here in Southeast Alaska and even up north. So I'd like to thank all the guests that traveled a long ways to make this possible, to share your knowledge as well as hear what we have to say too. I am Dakl'aweidi, killer whale chasing the seal house, and standing, the poster behind me is Mark Jacobs Jr., my mentor. He passed away a few years ago, and it's hard losing a mentor. It's hard losing your teacher, someone that you look up to and look forward to, look for answers to. It's bad enough there are very few killer whales, but when you have a mentor, a teacher that leaves us, it makes it even more difficult. I'm grateful that Harold, his son, is able to help me, along with the clan leaders in Angoon. They're very gracious in helping me out as far as the knowledge and what we need to do and what we need to say. I'm also grateful that in Angoon, that we stick to a very strict guideline. Sometimes some of the people, they want to change, but we try very, very hard to keep our culture, to keep it intact, and I'm very thankful for that. Next slide. The first thing we want to talk about, and the slides that I have up here pretty much summarizes what many of the speakers before me said. The very first thing we need to talk about as far as becoming a clan leader is lineage. You follow your mother's lineage. I know for some of you, I don't mean to offend you. This is not meant to offend anybody. It's just there's some people here that are not familiar with our culture, so I'm presenting it as if you did not know about our culture. That way you have at least a baseline to go from, and then you could ask the panelists or myself after this presentation for more information if need be. We follow our mother's side, right? My mother was Alice Brown, Alice DiCafano now, she's from Juneau. Her mother, Anna. And this goes back several hundred years. We always follow our mother's side, whether you're eagle or whether you're raven. If I was born into an eagle killawell, my mother was eagle killawell, her mother, and so forth. Next slide. Next part we want to talk about is selection. Many of the panelists talked about how they were selected. It's not a voting process. As they said earlier, it's not the most popular, right? My mother's brother was Dan Brown Jr., Kus Khan. After his passing, I was in line for the position, his nephew. Earlier they talked about the importance of your uncles. My uncle Peter Jack Sr. just passed away not too long ago. And as George mentioned, you sometimes go to your uncles for training. Well, I went to my Uncle Peter Jack for one summer and learned about hard work and learned about fishing, hunting. If I had brothers, they also would have been in line for the position. But I was talking to someone just before the presentation started. My mom only had me. And I wish my mom was a little bit more busy. You have more killer whales. Sometimes standing up here, when I ask for Dakl'aweidi to come up, there's usually just myself or one or two other people. I'm really happy to see Dakl'aweidi from Canada and how many there are. I'm glad you're here. Next slide. Those before me, this dates back several hundred years for the killer whale chasing the seal. We have John Nelson, Robert Jamestown, Dan Brown, and myself today. And because of time constraints, we can't go into the lineage of each one of them. We have a huge tree that dates back hundreds and hundreds of years, right? But we can't go into that with the time constraints. Next slide. Part of becoming a clan leader is the confirmation. Sometimes you hear the confirmation, you hear it in the Senate, in the House. All right. Most common, and this is at a memorial party. Usually 1 year after the mourning period is over, you have a confirmation or installation of a new clan leader or housemaster. In this case, it was the memorial party of my uncle Dan Brown, November 27th, 1997. At the time, I was in New Jersey teaching. I was a teacher for over 10 years, and I was in the military for 22 years. And I was brought up here. And every time I came home, many times before I even got a chance to take my bags home and go home, my mom would always take me to my uncle, her brother, Dan Brown Jr. That's the very first thing, no matter what. I didn't even have a chance to unpack. Many attend to view or acknowledge the installation of a new housemaster. Both the Raven housemasters and the Eagle housemasters, as well as clan members, confirm in public the newly installed housemaster. This is the way that it was done for me. I'm not saying this is the right way. I'm not saying this is the only way. This is the way it was done for me. Right? Both moieties are present as for checks and balances, because you can't have a party with just eagles there and expect that to be confirmed. You have to have checks and balances. You have to have balance. You'll hear that a lot, balance. You have to have the eagles and the ravens. And David up here said he couldn't bring out his regalia. He had to have the opposite bring it out. Okay. Clan property, in many cases, is very sensitive, but it's very important. Typically, the atu goes with and to the next housemaster. Right? That's the way we operate in Angoon. Right? It always goes to the next housemaster. Clan property, clan house, the regalia, the blankets, the clan hats, all go to the next housemaster. You or your family members do not inherit clan property. They do not. I'm not talking about the clan, the regalia, the button blankets that you make and you're a part of the killer whale house or you're part of the Raven house. I'm talking about the regalia and atu that was carried on from housemaster to housemaster. This does not include the personal artifacts, the personal regalia that you made. An example I give is much like the governor does not own, nor can they sell anything having to do with the position of the governor. You know, when the governor leaves the governorship, then they cannot sell the house. They cannot sell anything inside the house. That belongs to the people. Our clan leadership is like that. We do not own any of the regalia. I do not own it. I cannot say this is mine, this is ours. Much like the governor would say, this is our governor's house. It's not hers governor's house right now. Right? Nor does your family own it. When a housemaster passes away, that clan property cannot be passed on to family members. It should not be passed on to family members. It should be passed on with the housemaster. Just like if anything were to happen to the governor, then all the materials in the governor's mansion should not be passed on to the husband or to the children. It goes back to the state of the people. The clan property is much the same. When a housemaster passes, the next housemaster should receive all the clan property associated with that house. In my case, Dakl'aweidi. This also includes the ownership and usage of the clan songs and clan history. That's very important. You know, when you just can't arbitrarily sing someone's song. It's very sacred. It belongs to the clan. You'll hear many times when someone's singing a song, they'll acknowledge that they received permission to sing a song on behalf of a clan. It's very sacred. It's not something that should be thrown around lightly, along with the clan property. Not anyone could wear regalia or sing the songs or even tell the oral history that belongs to the clan. Right? It's very, very sacred. Okay, thanks. The naming, also very important when it comes to clan leadership. Housemaster names usually reserved for housemasters. Names of new housemasters received the previous names. In my case, it was Tlingit and Yitsa. Those are names I received in the installation in 1997. Both my names have been passed on to me from the previous housemasters of the Dakl'aweidi. I received both names at my uncle's party also, killer whale chasing the seal. This is a big part. The panelists before me talked about the responsibilities of a housemaster. You may agree or disagree. That's okay. I'm just sharing my knowledge of what I know. It is my responsibility to be of good, sound character as housemaster and be responsible to my fellow clan members with our songs, regalia, and history. It's very important. You know, Harold is now helping us. We have a group in Juneau learning the songs, learning the history to pass on, because it can't be with just one person. You have to have people that are involved, that want to learn, that are in your clan. To make a good faith showing at parties representing our clan house. Now, traveling is getting pretty expensive. For those of you that travel from Juneau to Sitka, you know that. So what I'm saying is that you can't always make every single party. I would be poor. But you can make a good faith effort to attend. And as they were talking about earlier, just showing your face is just as important. You know, I just got married I got married last year. And my wife is not Native. And one of the parties was coming up, and I didn't know that person, and she most certainly didn't know that person. But I knew they were of our community. And I said, we have to go. And she said, why? I don't know that person. I said, it doesn't matter. I said, it's just part of my culture. I have to show my face. I said, I don't know that person either, but I know his mom, and I know his dad, and it's always good just to show your face. You don't have to say anything. She says, what am I going to say? You don't have to say anything. When you're going through the line at the memorial service, just shake her hand. Shake his hand. Just look him in the eye. You don't have to say a word, and they'll understand that you're there for them. We generally are responsible to our clan house and usually do not interfere with other clan houses, clan property, regalia, and even to the point leaving the other clan history to their housemasters. I could say that this is just like the governorship, again, using my example. Generally, the governor of Alaska will not go to the governor of Washington and point fingers and say, you're not doing that right, you're not doing this right, you should do this, you should do that. The governor of Washington will say, who are you again? Generally, the governor is in charge of their jurisdiction. The governor of Alaska is responsible for the people of Alaska, not responsible for people of Washington. In my house, I'm responsible for the people in my house. I can't go to other houses and tell them what to do, how to do it, and if they're doing. If they ask for friendly advice, that's a different story. I ask for friendly advice a lot and say, am I doing this right? Because I don't want to make mistakes. And I know I'll make mistakes, but I just want to make sure that I don't make it again. Also, responsibility is to respond with speeches or songs during memorial parties or other clan functions to the opposite, ravens. It's very important that you respond to the opposite. I've seen several functions where they would respond to the audience. That is also in Angoon incorrect. Even if there are two ravens standing at a memorial party, then I am to respond to the two ravens and the two ravens only, not to the people. Right? Okay, next. Again, this presentation is just for your knowledge, and if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to approach me or approach any of the panel members. Andy is with me in Angoon. He's one of the Angoon clan leaders, and I really appreciate all the panel members and all the people, and I really appreciate all of you traveling such a long distance to view this. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope it makes it a little bit clearer on where we are and what we stand for. Ganesh Chish.
Yeah. I want to thank Governor Edwell John for this presentation. Okay, this is pretty much the end of this particular session here, and we'll just go right into the other session. Actually, the other session is almost a continuation of what Ed did, and thank you, Ed, for pointing those out. Those are some of the things that we will try to expedite because of our, these are, to me, these are the two main sessions, clan leadership and clan property. David?
Thanks, George. I don't know if this is appropriate, but thank you for the good presentation that you made there, Edwell. There's one thing that I just want to make to express as a concern that I have as a person with respect to the nakani that we have. This was like a Katzeek type of presentation showing your lineage and so forth and so on. And one of the things that I see that's happening quite often is the nakani is being looked at as a master of ceremonies and almost actually being the one taking over parties, which is really not appropriate in the traditional culture. The nakani's function is to be able to be the go-between between the host and the guest. They're not the individuals who are the masters of ceremonies, like the way it seems. And sometimes what happens is that particular function is taken over in a way where the host is held a little bit. And so I just wanted to share that and just put that in, sharing that part of knowledge regarding that. And that's the importance of this, of our culture. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Does this mean I just got demoted?
No.
No, that is a piece of important information. I thank you, David, for clarifying that. That is really important. I want to thank the panelists, especially the clan leaders and even the clan leaders that are sitting among us. Our apologies. We just, you know, I know we could use your valuable information as well. But I do want to thank each and every one of you. And sorry we didn't have a gift for every one of you, but the gift is you shared some incredible knowledge with the people here today. Let's give them a round of applause. Go right into the other one, huh?
Make sure Harriman doesn't go through any windows.
This means you're done. You got to sit around and listen to this next one. We're going to go right into the Edwell care and usage of clan regalia. And the panelists on that is Harold Jacobs, Irene Dundas, Andy Hope, and myself. If you find that you are accustomed to going to lunch at 12 instead of at high tide, you're certainly welcome to leave. You will not offend us in any way. And so we're going to try to zip through this portion right here as well. I know last night, if you were a participant from last night, or you just sat in the group and you saw what David had asked the Katzeek clan leader to do to bring out the Edwell, that's part of the actions of what we do. And right now we're just going to be doing a talk on the clan properties, on how it's handled and used. The first panelist I'd like to call up at this time is Irene Dundas. I believe you work for Cape Fox Corporation? Okay. Irene, you can lead us off on this one here, and then we'll be followed by Andy Hope. And I'll follow Andy Hope, and Harold will complete the session for this one this afternoon. Irene.
Well, thank you. My name is Irene Dundas. I work for Cape Fox Heritage Foundation, and we've been doing repatriation and research for the two traditional tribes of that area, the Taant'a Kwhaan and the Saanyuaa Kwhaan, for about, well, the Saanyuaa Kwhaan for about 13 years now. And we had a very large repatriation back in 2001 with the Harriman expedition retraced. And we brought home a totem pole from the Burke Museum, a totem pole from the Chicago Field Museum, the Harvard Peabody Museum, 4 house posts from the National Museum American Indian, Smithsonian, 1 totem pole from the Cornell University in New York. And also the Smithsonian had a whole house at one point in time. We repatriated just the house front. What I'll be talking about is transferring property and what we kind of have dealt with over the years on when the clan property had returned home and where we had put it and where it is at right now. And currently we have these poles that we repatriated aren't just like 10 feet tall. The largest totem pole we have is 42 feet. So it's pretty large. It has been waiting to be either put in the community hall that we have in Saxman, or if the clan would like to wait, they can wait until we get a museum in Saxman or in Katzeek. It's truly up to the clan what they want to do with their clan property. Some of the things that we do when transferring property, or we haven't actually really transferred a piece out of our control yet right now. The pieces are in a container, and in the future, if the clan would like to take a piece of their property from the caretakership of Cape Fox Heritage or Cape Fox Corporation, is the clan, I can't reiterate more, is consultation, consultation, consultation. If you're in a position like I am doing repatriation, to meet with the clan, meet with the museum, as much as you can, get as much information as you can, and just everybody be on the same page. You let the clan know the good, the bad, and the ugly. Be as neutral as you can be. I have a, Harold, I have a transfer agreement. Should I read that, or what? Okay, outline it. Okay, some of the things that we would like, if a clan would like to transfer a piece out of our control, out of Cape Fox Heritage Foundation's control, is we have a memorandum of understanding that is between usually the tribe, which is a native corporation or an IRA, and this document will show who owns the property, what the clan property is, and it just kind of all parties agree to what the object is. And also in this memorandum of understanding, put in there things like the clan retains full title to the object. And I mean, well, I guess I could make copies and anybody can get a copy of this, but the tribe also voluntaries to, the clan and tribe voluntary agrees to allow the entity to serve as a temporary repository for the object. This states that the entity that you transfer the object over to does not have the permanent sole ownership of that object. And also, when you're transferring an object into another museum for a loan, make sure that you have the right information that you want that clan property to have with it. Make sure that the entity understands this agreement in the memorandum of understanding. Also, there's one thing that we now have to set up when we are trying to transfer several pieces out several months ago, is that make sure the clan has those, like if a clan leader or house leader was to pass away, make sure that that entity, the museum, knows the next people in line who are to get those objects when in 20, 30 years from now. I can't reiterate that more. Western society is a big influence, and also talk to the museum. Let the museums know, you know, they're there, they're open, they're willing to talk with you. In most cases, some of the museum staff does not know who the next clan leader or the next housemaster is in line. And just make sure that there's that understanding and you have that consultation between those, the clan and the museum. And always be very neutral. to just open dialogue with the museum and the clan, and yourself as being, doing the repatriation, if anybody who's going in that field, it's really good. You'll get a good response back from the clan, and just consultation with the clan and the tribe, the museum. Get as much information as you can to go with that object. That's all I have about for right now. I guess I forgot to introduce myself formally. My Tlingit name is Dakl'aweidi. I'm from the house that anchored the village of Cake, Alaska. My mother is Katzeek from Cake. I'm nakani. My father is Wishkana Wayne Shields. My grandmother is the late Martha Shields from Saxman. My grandfather on my father's side is Albert Shields from the Katzeek, Taant'a Kwhaan. His father, James Shields, is from Sitka. My grandmother on my mother's side is Irene Austin. Her Tlingit name is also Dakl'aweidi. Her father was Johnny C. Jackson from Cake. And thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Our next presenter will be Andy Hope.
Thank you, George. I've introduced myself a couple times last night and this morning, so. What I wanted to talk about is over the last 20 years or so, there's been a flood of repatriated artwork, clan and clan house crests, clan property in general, that has been returned to Tlingit country or indigenous communities throughout North America with the NAGPRA Act, the North American blah, 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 blah. And one of the foremost experts in this, and one of the foremost, the person that has brought back many of these objects is Harold, and he's going to be doing we'll be going through some experiential learning in a few minutes. And that's the best learning, I think. But what has happened is many of these objects, there was no place to house them when they came back. So they came back and they went to Steve Hendrickson at the State Museum and asked if they could be housed there, if we could work out some kind of an agreement. So many of them have gone to non-institutions, and I think there's a need for the respective clan and clan houses to put in writing what the rules are for care, use, and maintenance of all of these clan properties, atu. And they come in many forms, as most of you are aware. And so I call these interactive agreements, where you're dealing with the non-native institution on one hand, and the clan and the clan house and their members on the other hand. But I think it's really important to spell these rules out in writing, and it should be between the clan and not just one representative of the clan. You should avoid at all costs a key man or a key person or a key woman agreement where you're just the clan is and the clan house is just responsible, just dependent on one person, and that person has no rules in writing. Everything's upstairs in the head, and what happens when that key person disappears? it causes a lot of hard feelings. It has, I think, in many instances that I'm personally aware of, just over the last 25 years. My Aunt Ellen Hope Hayes is here, and she was, her and Peter Corey, Peter's here too, isn't he? I know he registered. But they took the leadership in one of the pioneering repatriation efforts in which we organized a real fast partnership. You know, it was headed up by the Sheldon Jackson Museum, the Alaska State Museum, Alaska State Department of Education, Central Council of Tlingit Native Indian Tribes of Alaska. My dad was president at that time, and David Katzeek at Sea Alaska Heritage Foundation, which is now known as Sea Alaska Heritage Institute. And we raised jointly, and the Sitka Tribe of Alaska, which I was working as administrator at that time, this is 1982. And we became aware of that Kikseti frog hat that had been sold to a major art collector a few years earlier was up for auction at Sotheby's. So we organized this quick partnership. You know, most of the money was put up to bid on the hat, was put up by the Alaska Department of Education and Alaska State Museum. And we negotiated this memorandum of agreement where certain responsibilities were the state of Alaska, and the Alaska State Museum had certain articulated responsibilities, and the Kikseti clan had certain responsibilities, and the other partners had, you know, less responsibilities, you know, Sea Alaska Heritage Institute and Central Council and the Sitka Tribe of Alaska. The way it ended up is my father's clan was dependent on a key person. They never did articulate the rules of who was responsible for developing the internal rules for the clan and the Kikseti clan, and that still hasn't been done. So, you know, that's the kind of, thankfully that nobody's been damaged, there hasn't been many hard feelings, but I think it's really important to lay out these rules. There's hardly anybody that understands Tlingit language nowadays, so I think it's important to spell out the rules in Tlingit, and you could work on articulating in English, I mean. You can work out articulating it in Tlingit and translating it to Tlingit also. The other type of document outlining internal rules is internal, and that's for the members of the clan and the clan house. Outlining internal rules for care, maintenance, and usage of clan property. And I know that one of the biggest factors in breaking Tlingit common law over the last 100 years or more has been Anglo probate, where all property goes to the father. And you can see how that's going to just create all kinds of havoc when you're dealing with a matrilineal society and matrilineal common law. So that's my sermon for today. Don't be dependent on a key person. Don't be dependent on a key man. Don't be dependent on what is in one person's head. Lay out the rules so everybody knows what the rules are. Kulchish.
Thank you, Andy. One of the things I would like to discuss here is the principles of Tlingit property law. One of you heard Andy talk about some of the things that we're plagued with. Because we live in such a modern society, we've incorporated Western society laws as well. and it's easy to do. So because of that, you know, we've kind of looked the other direction in regards to how we handle our clan property. You know, one of the things that I've always advocated in order to understand Tlingit as well as any other clan's property in our traditional law and what governs the handling and use of those. You saw earlier how it was handled when Mr. Katzeek invited the Kikseti clan leader to take his precious nakani out of the suitcase. Did not want to handle it. And also, when Ray Wilson had mentioned and brought forth some of his members of the Kikseti people that were no longer among us, to bring them forth and saying that was them that was bringing it out. This is one of the most honorable ways that you can treat Tlingit clan property, because we don't come on ourselves and point at ourselves and say, thank you, you gave me the honor for taking this out. We don't say those kinds of words, but we bring forth our ancestors in name. When we look at the Tlingit clan property, whether it's tangible, such as something that you can touch and see, or intangible, meaning the songs and the stories, these also are also treated in a special way. Mind you that none of this comes under Western property law. Some of the difficulties that we have today when we talk about Tlingit is intellectual property rights, because it's owned by a body of individuals, not one individual, a body of individuals. Western property law does not protect us in that manner, only if it was owned by one individual. The only thing that I see that's owned by one individual on some of the what's even perceived as clan property today is like the vest that I'm wearing today. Basically, it belongs to me. But the robe that I had belongs to the Dakl'aweidi clan. I am only the caretaker. So that is some of the things that we really are responsible for, to try and to define the difference between Tlingit law on Tlingit how it is handled and how it is cared for is really important, and how we can differentiate and get away from Western society's property law that does not apply. In my way of thinking, when we start doing stuff like that, it's almost like putting oil and water together. They will not mix. That gets us in trouble every time. We see how precious this stuff is for our people when we handle them, and the honor that is presented to us when we have an opportunity to talk about our history of our clan through these items. It is important that everybody that is the caretaker and the clan that has the ownership to robes, clan hats, staffs, songs, stories, on how you present them in whatever the ceremony or the activity that is going on, that is very highly important, because that connects you not only to your clan property, but that connects you to your identity and to your ancestral homeland that you come from. Those are the three most important ingredients when you begin to identify who you are exactly. That's who you are. We see the Shungukedi brought their robe to us today. That's who they are. He also acknowledged the fact on how he was actually connected to the Kikseti people. That was the reason why he brought them out, to bring this stuff out. We could go on and on and on and on and talk about this, but I just wanted to reiterate those points to you on how we see and where it's going. We don't want to stand up here and tell you all the rounds that's going on, but we want to discuss to let you know what we feel that is paramount important to our people. And in my own personal experience now, if we don't begin to try to understand how we deal with our clan property in its truest form, to some extent we're going to lose our identity. I'm saddened to see that we have to sometimes go to museums to look at our stuff. But yet then I'm also happy that we have folks like Irene, Harold Jacobs, and several more that work in these jobs to make every attempt to get these items back to our people and to the right caretakers. So with that, saying all that, I'd like to turn this portion over to Harold Jacobs.
Today, in Tlingit and Haida Repatriation Office, we have repatriated about 155 objects, including 122 shaman objects. 44 were returned by the Field Museum, 73 by the American Museum of Natural History. One of these objects was turned right over to Huna, 19 were turned over to Yakutat, 6 come from Juneau. 20 of them come from Bob Sam's family. 53 were from Angoon, from an unknown location in the Angoon area. 6 crushed hats, 4 chilkat blankets, 3 chilkat tunics, 3 daggers, 5 shakiyats, 1 canoe prow figure, 1 beaded robe, and we have about 171 claims outstanding to museums yet. We trace our lineages through our mother's side. We're a matrilineal society. Some people say we're matriarchal. Matrilineal means descent and inheritance is through the mother. Matriarchal means that the woman is in charge. Those of you married to a Tlingit woman probably think it is matriarchal. So we use our lineages through our mother's side. And this is how we identify these objects, if we can, in order to the proper clans, the houses. And in taking care of it, we use family members that know the history of the objects, and where they decide to keep these objects when they come back is up to them. If we don't know which family owns the object, then the tribe in the area these objects come from will take care of them. My father was the caretaker of a lot of Vat'u for his clan. One of them he's holding there. And as much as I'd like to keep those things, I can't hang on to my father's things. That's not the way we did it. I'm turning those things over to the killer whales because they're killer whale property. They're not my property. And if my dad had told me to give that property to somebody who was adopted, I would have agreed with him, and after he died, I would have given it to the proper clan members. Just wanted to say something about my dad. My dad was a lifelong Republican, and just before he died, he switched parties, became a Democrat, because he said he'd rather have a Democrat die than a Republican. We do have some objects here. I'd like anybody that is here from Wrangell Clans, if they could stand up over on the side here and here. My mother, I am Saanyuaa. My mother's mother was Christine. There are women who remember my mother's mother. I want to make that very clear. My mother did not know her mother. She was about 3 years old when her mother died, but there were older women who remembered my mother's mother and her sisters. Her name was Maxine. Maxine's mother was Saganate. Saganate had 3 brothers, Kwait, Gutshut, and Dakl'aweidi. Saganate had 7 sisters. There were 3 boys and 8 girls in the family. One of the sisters had a daughter named Dakl'aweidi. That's the only daughter she had, and Dakl'aweidi never had any children. Saganate stayed home when all her 7 of her sisters went out berry picking in Stevens Passage, and all 7 sisters disappeared in a storm. They never found them. So that was the only one keeping my lineage alive, was Saganate. Her father was Katzeek from Wrangell. Her grandfather was nakani from Wrangell. Through my father's side, I also have connections in Wrangell. These are 30-second timeout. I need a drum, if anybody has a drum here. I'm going to do this a little different. Could I have some museum people who have not been given Tlingit names come up here? We need to get this box opened. Robin? Eric, good. We find a drum yet? Edwell. Is Edwell here? Yeah. I want to use the dog spirit before we open this. I can say we're going to do the dog spirit song. This is to lock up any bad things that might be here, to bring a healing spirit. Okay?
We're going to do the dog spirit song.
Put the box up on the table. This is a healing spirit.
This is a healing spirit.
Saanyuaa Kwhaan. Katzeek. Yeah. Can you open the box? These are shaman objects. Usually we wouldn't we'd do some other things to open these. These are very hard for us to handle. Can you help them unpack these and then hold them up so that people can see these? To us, we wouldn't be handling these. For years, these have been in museums and handled by these people. And apparently, it hasn't bothered them. After you talk to them, you'll find out otherwise. We do not know which clans these came from. These just were marked as coming from the Stikine, which is the Wrangell area. The reason why we did that spirit song was to brace these as they came out of the box. We just don't handle things any old which way. Tlingit term for that is Katzeek, something that's handled only a certain way, sensitively. These items were returned from the National Museum of the American Indian. Robin, could you hold one of those up? You can untie those. And if you could hold the robe up, turn it to the Wrangell people first so they can see that these come from Wrangell. I was going to do this at the dinner, but then I figured we could do this here today when we're talking about it. Again, we do not know what clans these come from. So these, hopefully we'll be able to work out an agreement with the Wrangell Cooperative and turn these over to their care for the clans that are from Wrangell. And these, we've already made the agreement to transfer these over to the Wrangell Museum, so the Wrangell people will be able to see these objects. They'll be kept in Wrangell. There's a club here, an oyster catcher rattle, and a painted hide robe. The robe you have upside down. You have the robe upside down. You got it upside down again. How? I think it's labeled as painted caribou hide. See where the shoulder straps are? Those go on top. These people have doctorates, you know. Okay, I can turn it to the other people. This may be the only time they're ever out like this. They're probably going to be kept in the museum in Wrangell for the Wrangell people from now on. I don't know the name of the club. The rattle we call it the gunshay shoch, the oyster catcher rattle. These are unique to the Tlingit shaman, the icht. And we don't know what the crest imagery is on, or the vision painted on the robe is. Someone from the Forest Service agreed to take this back to Wrangell. Is he here? Well, these will be going back to Wrangell this week, since we're talking about it. When we get items back and we know the clan they belong to, they will be returned to the clan, the proper clan. But these will be retained by the entire community.
We need to balance the spirits.
Yeah.
Whose spirit zone do we have to balance?
I don't know, ask Colonel Gessel, or ask Kenny. Does Kenny know any song? Or ask Echo, who knows that? Can we on the table?
Kenny. Outside.
We'll leave these out for a few minutes if you want to take a look at them, but please do not touch them.
Harriman, do they have a spirit zone?
I don't know.
Do we have a spirit zone? Harlina. Was that a killer whale song? Was that a killer whale? Yeah, it was a killer whale. If you wonder what's going on, they had a killer whale spirit zone, and we need to balance it from the Raven side. Lillian, can you join us?
Lillian.
Darlene C. Clarissa Hudson, are you here? Did you come up here? Okay. At this time, we just want to, since it was a killer whale spirit song that they had sung over these items here, because they're also connected to the shaman. These are items of very sensitive things, so we want to be careful on how we move through the day with this, and we want to balance this out so that nothing happens to any of us. And so that's what we're going to do. And you see the Duckdane towns are standing up here, and we're going to go ahead and balance that out. Edwell John, where are you at? we can go ahead and stand up again with your balances.
It's going to be a Mount Fairweather song.
Did you want to just say thank you?
Goodness Chish, thank you for balancing it out.
Kenny?
Which Jinnah with the shot in this cage, Tlingit. We held each other's hands. This is our culture. Yeah, just tell week to harsh. Yeah, has the Kunugu, a choyat, Dakl'aweidi, Dakl'aweidi. Yeah, gonna chish.
Well, thank you for having patience with us this morning, and also that just what you experienced was hopefully you would gain a little bit of how we do things in the way our grandfathers, at least we're imitating what they have done, you know. May not be in its truest form, but at least we're continuing to try our best. And so I want to thank the rest of the panelists that sat on the panel with me this morning. And if you want to come up here and look at these items before you take off for lunch, and you're certainly welcome to do so, but again, please do not touch the items because of their sensitive items. So if you want to take photos of them, and again, we thank you this morning, and you have a good lunch.